is actually part of it. I mean, back in 2014, I published a book called The People's Platform, which is a political economy of the internet. And it sort of lays out all of the sort of perverse incentives of an intention economy. And I think sometimes those can derail us from the kind of deep work of organizing we need to do, right? I mean, you can get more attention by just saying something, that's provocative online, instead of doing this work of like actually building a community and building a base, right? Which is, you need to relate to people in a different way. You need to be more compassionate. You need to listen to people instead of just shouting your opinions. And so the question, that became a bit harder to do in 2020 when everybody was social distancing as much as possible, for those who had the privilege, in order to stay safe from COVID. That said, I mean, I think so. I'll bring it back to the Debt Collective, which is the union for debtors that I'm part of, that was formed in the wake of Occupy Wall Street. Part of our mission, though, was always to address the atomization of our time, because atomization didn't start with COVID, as you've pointed out, right? It was something already sort of built into our culture. And, one thing we take inspiration from the labor movement. So just like there are unions for workers, we were like, what if debtors had unions? But the problem is that debtors don't share a factory floor, right? Or a workplace. So we always have struggled with how we bring people together virtually based on the fact that they share a common condition, a common form of exploitation, right? So student debtors, again, they're not all just in the same physical space. So that's something we're already trying to figure out how to experiment with, how to build online forums that would have that kind of, that would foster a positive community. It's just something that we have to be creative about. We have to try and fail better, right? We have to figure out ways of relating that use technology, use new communications technologies where they're appropriate, and then realize like, no, we need to get offline and actually talk this over face to face. So, it's something that we have to recognize the risks of certain sort of online incentives, recognize the sort of bigger social forces that are pushing us into our atomized and isolated bubbles, and try to break out of those consciously through whatever means we can. So I think that technology in some ways can play a role if we use it with a lot of intention, and again, a lot of with being strategic at the front of our minds.
Well, couldn't agree more. Astra Taylor, your book is entitled Remake the World, Essays, Reflections, Rebellions. And I'd encourage everybody to check out the Debt Collective as well. Say you have student debt. This would be a great opportunity to get involved with Astra's organization. We're going to put a link to your book wherever you're listening to this show. Thank you in the podcast, unless you're on Peacock, then just Google it. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Astra.
Thanks for having me, Emma. I really appreciate it.
All right. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Mitch McConnell talk. So Mitch McConnell went on Fox News this morning, and he seemed to indicate that his agenda as the leader of the Republicans in the Senate and basically the leader of the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, I don't know if he has the chops to run with McConnell here, that their agenda and Trump's agenda going into the 2022 midterms may not exactly be aligned, and that's going to pose some problems. Let's take a listen to his lukewarm response to a question asked by him by Fox anchors this morning.
Will you welcome the former president's involvement in the midterm?
Well, he has his own agenda, and my view is we're going to focus on this administration and the future, what they're trying to do to the country. and make it a referendum in the fall of 22 on how people feel about this new government they narrowly elected, while they continued a 50-50 Senate and a close score over in the House.
All right, well, we should let you get back to fighting on the Senate floor. Thank you so much.
Well, that was not exactly an enthusiastic endorsement of Donald Trump's involvement in the midterms. To me, this indicates that McConnell has very little interest in Trump's future involvement in the party. I think he thinks it poses a problem outside of their base, which is accurate in terms of a general election. It's a galvanizing force for the left, for Democrats, for the Democratic Party, for their fundraising apparatus. They raised a ton of money off of Donald Trump and just kind of everything that he said. So I think McConnell's accurate in that assessment, but he's also a fundraising juggernaut for the Republican base. He is a grassroots fundraiser for them. There are a lot of Republicans who will give their hard-earned money to the Republican Party because they love Donald Trump so much. So he's walking this really fine tightrope. A tightrope's fine in and of itself. It's not thick, then it would be a plank. But anyway, I don't know if he's doing it that artfully. Now, luckily for him, he may not have to embrace Donald Trump in the way that he may not want to, because the Democrats are poised, I think, for a significant wake-up call in the 2022 midterms. They're very likely to lose the House, and then you have a lot of roadblocks to maintaining the Senate as well, no matter what Biden does, just in terms of sheer numbers and demographics, etc. And the fact that we are not really combating the Republican voter suppression efforts on a national level going into the midterms. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. But yeah, I mean, what also exacerbates this too is that Trump shut down his blog. He's got no real way of directly communicating with his base in a way that would really hurt Mitch McConnell, because in the past, all Trump had to do was send out a tweet and McConnell would retreat back into his turtle shell, and you know, he would come and bend the knee to Donald Trump because he has the heart and soul of the Republican base. But that's not the case here. Matt, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not certain. I think that the Twitter thing is interesting with regards to how Trump can keep control of this, because it looks like he is, and it's not super surprising to me. But yeah, I don't know. I think because the Democrats aren't doing anything to really push an advantage here, I don't think this is a terrible, tough position for McConnell anymore. Like, I think if there were seats that he was really trying to save, then it is. But I don't know. I think Trump is. I'm worried that Trump might just be really good for rilling up the base, and Republicans are going to vote like Republicans ultimately, and that's what they need from Trump, is to like try to keep some of that turnout sort of magic that he has without being too bogged down in him as a individual personality. And this is actually, it looks like this is the way to do it, maybe, for McConnell.
Yeah. I just read an IM. Les says, way to go, Emma. Keep discouraging people from voting in 2022. No reason to vote. The numbers are against. Probably helps Majority Report's bottom line. Dude, that's not accurate. Please go out and vote for in the primaries, you should vote for the leftiest lefty that you can. And then if your lefty candidate does not win the primary, please vote for the Democrat in 2022. I'm actively telling you to do that.
I think it's pretty ludicrous of this show to be accused of being anti-voting.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is not some other online shows. Brendan, what were you saying?
I was just bringing it back to the Trump point. I think it's been interesting so far to see like how he's been dipping his toes in certain races and things like that, and how, you know, candidates now going through primaries are starting to like reach out to him and try to court him in some way. I know the AG candidate in Virginia just accused Trump of not being like tough enough to come out to Virginia to campaign for him as like some kind of bait to reel him in. And Trump's candidates lost in the New Jersey GOP primary. I know the New Jersey GOP is like, you know, different from, you know, what Trump's base might be. But, you know, I mean, I think it illustrates like how McConnell is playing this. Like, he doesn't need Trump to like be too out and out to like encourage Democrats to go out as heavily in the midterms as well. So I think he's doing what Mitch McConnell does.
Yeah. And I agree. I think the sense of things is that while Trump, yes, if he chooses to lend his voice to some sort of Republican primary or a race where there's a MAGA candidate involved, that has effectiveness for sure. But I mean, I didn't even foresee when Trump was kicked off social media how much this would sap him of the saliency and just like the fact that he was so at the forefront of the conversation even after he left office, when he was, you know, releasing those press releases. But now that's been fewer and further between. And I don't know, without his direct line of communication to his base, McConnell may be correct in his calculation that Donald Trump is not somebody that you need to worry about right there. But it will be a really interesting schism going into the midterms if it is that at all. And unfortunately, the Democrats are not necessarily giving people a ton of optimism because now they're saying, oh, if we're not able to pass all of our agenda, if we're not able to reform the filibuster, if we're not able to get what we want on infrastructure, don't worry, we'll just use it against Republicans for electoral purposes, which is just the exact wrong calculation to make, I think.
Yeah, and I would just make a final...
Yeah, that's close to the end of our show today.
Just a final note on the social media thing. I would not be surprised if particularly Facebook lets Trump on at a moment that's opportune to him, knowing who is...
It's a 2-year ban, right? From, I think, a few weeks ago.
Yes.
It means that he's going to be back just in time for... not the midterms, but for 2024, which will be quite interesting.
This is where we play the cash machine sound drop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's also like just ideological, like Joel Kaplan and folks like that. This right-wing outfit.
I'm trying to find this cash machine, but here we go. Boom. All right. Well, this is where we say goodbye to our Peacock audience. Thank you for bearing with us or watching the show. I'm still getting the hang of the tech here in Sam's seat when he's out, but looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow and signing off. I did that so well. If you're sticking around, we've got a fun half for you folks. Matt Binder will be joining us. Do we have Brandon this week?
Yes.
Brandon Sutton will be joining us. Sorry, hold on one second. We have Matt?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, Binder's joining soon. There he is.
Hey, there. Hello, Matt.
How you guys all doing? I've been sitting here for a week waiting to come on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, unmoved. I've just been sitting here since last week.
Well, that's because...
What about your kids?
I don't know. I haven't seen them in a week. I hope they're fine.
Binder, you tweeted out a photo of your daughter. She is so damn cute. How old did she turn the other day? 4?
She turned 2.
Jeez, that was a shot in the dark. Why did I even try to guess?
Yeah, but thank you for the kind words, Emma. Yeah, she turned 2, and it's like immediately, just like that, terrible 2s kick in, and she's acting a little bit more rambunctious than usual. Troublemaker now.
Well,
inner blood, man. That's the punk tendencies. It's the
Hell yeah.
punk history.
so what's happening over on Doomed?